Portland, Oregon is known for being unique. Its unofficial slogan is "Keep Portland Weird." And it quite possibly got weirder when the state began a first-of-its-kind experiment.
I remember hearing as an outsider that here they had passed a law that legalized possession of heroin, all kinds of hard drugs.
It was an extreme idea that had a significant impact upon our community. We saw public use just explode in our city.
What's your view on the change in the law?
It's the worst thing that's ever happened to this country.
This week, the outcome of a failed experiment and possible lessons for the rest of the country.
Last month, President Trump returned to North Carolina to follow up on a campaign promise.
Today, here I am to deliver on that promise.
This week, we are on the ground in the hurricane-wrecked region to see what difference a few weeks and a new president makes.
Welcome to Full Measure. I'm Sharyl Attkisson. The U.S. is mired in a years-long nightmare of record drug use and overdose deaths, killing well over 100,000 people a year and costing taxpayers in terms of crime, law enforcement, homelessness, and prison. Today we look at a first-of-its-kind experiment that tried to provide a unique solution. Oregon passed a law called Measure 110. It decriminalized the use of hard drugs, including fentanyl. What could go wrong? Well, the state found out, and after a tumultuous 3 years, they not only rescinded the law, but booted a soft-on-crime prosecutor in Portland. Today, we head to Oregon to find out what this could say about national trends.
Parts of Portland, Oregon are notorious for public drug use and overdoses, harboring countless sad stories and breeding crime.
2 people just got blam.
Believe it or not, a few years ago, Oregon voters approved a first-of-its-kind law, Measure 110, to decriminalize all hard drugs, including cocaine, meth, and opioids like heroin and fentanyl. The idea to shift the focus to treatment. But after 3 disastrous years, the Democrat-controlled state legislature reversed the law.
The end of Oregon's experiment with hard drugs signals a deeper change in voter sentiment, an apparent acknowledgement that so-called soft-on-crime policies have failed.
Voters also booted Mike Schmidt, the once popular district attorney in Multnomah County. Portland's the county seat. Schmidt was among dozens of prosecutors around the U.S. accused of being soft on crime, originally elected with money from liberal billionaire George Soros. Nathan Vasquez is the new DA in town. We recently caught up with him his first week on the job.
What has happened to the crime rates or the crime statistics in this area over the past 5-10 years?
Well, it certainly had a dramatic spike, and that was in the 2022 to 2023 range. When we're talking about our homicide rates, we went from averaging about 20 to 30 homicides in the city of Portland to over 100. So we saw some really dramatic increases.
Are there any digestible, simple ways you can explain some of the changes that happened and what the net effect was?
Yeah, there was certainly a defund the police movement.
Defund the Police came to Portland after major protests in 2020, sparked by the murder of George Floyd, a black felon who died while a white police officer restrained him with a knee to the neck. The officer was convicted of murder.
There was really just an outright campaign to discourage police from even coming here, and we saw dramatic drops in our numbers of law enforcement officers. We saw some dramatic changes around our drug laws, and those things combined with some others really affected kind of the day in, day out work in the criminal justice system.
I remember hearing as an outsider that here they had passed a law that legalized possession of heroin, all kinds of hard drugs.
This was brought from kind of an outside think tank group from the East Coast. And it was an extreme idea that had a significant impact upon our community.
Did a lot more people, do you think, begin carrying and using these hard drugs?
Well, we saw a few different things, and certainly that was one of them. We saw people coming from outside of our state to be here for that purpose. And we saw, just sadly, skyrocketing rates of overdose deaths. We saw public use just explode in our city.
Overdose deaths in Oregon shot up from 696 in 2020 to more than 1,800 in 2023.
This is a liberal or progressive community overall, correct?
Very.
Do you think the community here favored trying these things, but as a whole have decided they didn't work?
It was packaged that, it was going to provide all this treatment and it was going to do all these wonderful things, and unfortunately it failed to deliver on those.
It's opium. It's not going to do things that are...
Aaron Schmautz heads up the Portland Police Association. He says the job of policing became exponentially harder in 2020.
I do think it's important to say that it wasn't just because of Measure 110. Fentanyl is a force multiplier. All of the economic kind of downturn and issues that came from 2020 led to a lot of just more people on the streets, all these things. And so just at every level, white collar crime, property crime, insurance rates in the downtown core have gone absolutely through the roof.
We also wanted to hear from some of the people suffering from drug addiction. For that, we went to Fora Health Treatment and Recovery in Portland, where it's dinner time.
Thank you.
The head of the treatment center, Devarshi Bajpai, spoke with us about Measure 110.
It implies that there's societal approval for drug use, which I think is not what we want the message to be.
Yet he doesn't see Measure 110 as a big factor in Portland's problems. Annie Otis says Measure 110 and its repeal did factor into her addiction and decision to get help.
Did the lax drug law that made it decriminalized to possess hard drugs make a difference to you and make it easier for you to use or more likely to use?
Absolutely.
What was your thought process?
My thought process was that, it was really easy to keep doing what I was doing. I probably would have continued on the same path, because there just wasn't a lot of consequences for a while.
What's your view on the change in the law?
Fentanyl should absolutely not be legal. It hurts people. It's a killer. It's the worst thing that's ever happened to this country. And no, it should absolutely not be legal.
Anthony Morris also says Measure 110 gave him a mindset that made it easier to use hard drugs.
At the time when drugs in here in Portland, Oregon were open, it made me think and feel that I can use more. It's everywhere, it's okay to use. So that made me in my mind to think, this is fine. Everybody's doing it. And now that the laws are back to where it's not legal, it makes me feel like it's not okay, because whatever the state does, I believe it makes people think that things are okay, just like myself. So honestly, I think it's better that they don't.
It may be too soon to know if there will be big changes in Portland now that hard drugs are illegal again and there's a tougher on-crime prosecutor at the helm.
It can be.
But Vasquez has seen at least one big difference.
Well, in 2016, when Trump was elected, we saw, 4 days of riots here in Portland. There was fires, arsons, there was the whole gamut. So, in this past November, I think everyone in the city was kind of holding their collective breath and getting ready to see what was going to happen. And we prepared. We got ready.
So you did some very conscious messaging.
Oh, yes. I went and visited every single roll call, and I talked to every single police officer. I looked him in the eye and said, we're going in a different direction. We're going to do things differently.
And were there no protests?
There weren't. It was shocking. I've tried to be very clear. It is not going to be tolerated.
When you look at the next 4 years, what would you consider a measure of success for you?
Well, definitely seeing our homicide rates come down, seeing public use of these hard drugs, see that change, and to see a dramatic drop in our overdose deaths. Those are all things that, are very real examples of, what I would like to see. As a whole, I want this community to feel safe.
According to reports, billionaire George Soros spent at least $50 million to elect scores of social justice prosecutors across the country. At least 21 have since been recalled, replaced, or voted out. Ahead on Full Measure, Trump supercharges Hurricane Helene cleanup. The Trump administration fired FEMA's chief financial officer and 3 other employees for sending New York City $59 million for illegal immigrants after the payments were ordered halted. Also this past week, President Trump called for abolishing the Federal Emergency Management Agency, saying local governments can handle recovery better and spend the money more wisely. Today, Lisa Fletcher visits a North Carolina town hit hard by Helene last fall to find out what has come of Trump's guarantee to jumpstart help.
This is Swannanoa, North Carolina, in the aftermath of a rogue hurricane that ripped through this small mountain town, leaving it in ruins. Today, it's a town frozen in time. Businesses on Main Street stand in ruins, their contents twisted and jumbled, cars filled with silt still parked, unmoved, since the day Helene caused the river here to crest over 27 feet.
We're looking at more very heavy rain.
It's getting dangerous here, so as soon as we're done with this live shot, we need to get out of here.
More than 100 lives were lost in North Carolina. More than 200 people died in total across the region. The lives of many others disrupted, and many of those still struggling.
I have an apple crisp.
Kevin Halford lost his home in the flood. We met him at a mobile soup kitchen supported wholly by the people in the community.
I spent 4 hours during the flood underneath the overpass up here. Once it stopped, I was able to get out, saw that the river down here had taken over the main road.
There have been a lot of donations and a lot of help from individuals, but as far as what you expected from the state or the federal government, where does that fall?
In the beginning, it was like hardly existent, and now it seems to be getting better, and I thank Trump for that.
Within weeks of the storm, then candidate Trump made a stop and a promise.
I will support and totally complete the rebuilding of every region and town and city that was devastated by the hurricane, and I will slash through every bureaucratic barrier that you're having already and having problems with right now, I understand pretty badly.
Mike Stewart was there that day, the man behind Trump in the white hat.
Everything's gone.
It was over here.
He owns a storage shed business that washed away in the flood.
Oh, this is where the storage lot was, right there.
Then candidate Trump, he said that if he were put back in the White House, that he would help. He would fix this.
Yeah.
What did you make of those comments at the time?
I stood face to face with him and was able to look him in the eyes and try to get a sense of sincerity, whether he was for real or whether he was a politician talking. And my sense was he was for real. He was the only one that had the dust from Swannanoa on his shoes. But he made the promise, if I get elected, I will be back and we'll get this area taken care of.
In January, just days after the inauguration, President Trump returned.
Today, here I am to deliver on that promise, and we have a lot of things in mind, and we're getting the Army Corps of Engineers all set. You need your riverbanks fixed, you need a lot of roads fixed, and we're going to get it done in rapid time.
And just days ago, the sound of progress. The Army Corps of Engineers, along with contractors and county crews, cleaning roadsides and removing splintered trees and debris from the Swannanoa River. Even the cab of an 18-wheeler is finally out of the water.
The executive order told us to go faster. We heard it loud and clear. The governor told
Colonel
us to
Brad
go faster.
Morgan is with the Army Corps of Engineers.
Within the last week or so, we've really been able to clear a lot of bottlenecks to get a lot of the permitting and a lot of the other coordination finalized, and that's enabled us to get started.
So far, the Corps has collected more than 1 million cubic yards of debris. According to Colonel Morgan, it isn't even half of what the storm left behind.
You know, in talking to just residents, you know, some have felt that they saw an initial surge of help from FEMA and the Army Corps of Engineers, and then they feel like things just went away, and now you're back.
We were here, we finished our first pass in a lot of our communities. We're starting that second pass.
What's the timeline that you're on?
So for waterway debris removal, the goal is June the 1st. And then we've also targeted finalizing our private property debris removal by the end of June. Our goal is to get that out of people's way, out of people's lives, so that the recovery process and the rebuilding process can continue.
And just last weekend, the Army Corps efforts and relief efforts overall came under review of Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem.
We had the chance to see some of the waterways being cleared today with the partnership of the Army Corps of Engineers.
The Homeland Secretary promised not only changes in support for relief in North Carolina, but changes in FEMA itself.
Perhaps it is going to be eliminating a lot of what FEMA is at the federal level and giving the authority, the dollars, and the money to the states so that they can deploy that.
And she gave credit to those who helped themselves.
There you go. What happened in North Carolina was incredibly special. You don't see this in every other state, how people don't worry about themselves and about their homes. They went and helped their neighbor who was losing everything.
If Swannanoa wasn't built for the storm, the people were. Terry Dolan and Matt Barker didn't know each other before the storm. They say Helene has left them and the town stronger.
Nobody cares about where you're coming from politically or in any other way. We're all surviving this together and we're all helping each other out.
And at the end of the day, I feel pretty confident that Swannanoa, North Carolina, is going to have a better community to raise children in, to have businesses in, than we did before the storm. I feel confident we're going to get there.
Can Trump do away with FEMA?
No, he said he was planning an executive order to fundamentally overhaul the agency, but under federal law, it requires an act of Congress.
And we haven't always had FEMA, of course, so maybe we don't really need it.
No, I mean, going all the way back to 1803, there was a patchwork of laws that would handle things like these disasters. But in 1979, President Carter felt that that wasn't working, and it wasn't streamlined, and it was politically corrupt, and that's why he created FEMA. Obviously, the Trump administration feels it didn't succeed the way President Carter wanted it to.
Stay tuned.
Yeah.
Thanks. Coming up on Full Measure, Donald Trump delivers on another campaign promise. An update to a controversy we've been covering for years here on Full Measure over males competing on female sports teams. President Trump recently declared an effective end to the practice with the stroke of a pen.
We have a 10.
Surrounded by young female athletes, the president declared the war on women's sports is over with an executive order called Keeping Men Out of Women's Sports. The federal government can now take aggressive action to withhold federal money from schools that allow males to compete on female sports teams. We began coverage of the issue over 4 years ago when some young female athletes took action themselves.
Chelsea Mitchell is one of the fastest sprinters in the country. She's shown here in 2018, losing the 55-meter dash to Miller in red on one side and Yearwood on the other. The next year, Mitchell again loses to Miller in orange and Yearwood to the left.
It's been very unfair for me and the other girl competitors to race against them. I personally lost 4 state championships, 2 All New England awards, and countless other opportunities because of it.
Mitchell and 2 other athletes, Alana Smith and Selena Soul, have filed a federal lawsuit challenging the Connecticut policy that lets students switch from the boys' team to the girls' team without surgery or hormone treatments.
I would say that it's unfair that us biological females have to run against biological males, and that we really just want fairness in our sport and we just want change to happen.
And 2 years ago, Lisa Fletcher reported on a lawsuit filed by women athletes against the National Collegiate Athletic Association, the NCAA.
Recruited to swim for Roanoke College, an NCAA Division III school in Virginia, these juniors nearly lost their dream of excelling as competitive racers. Last year, a former member of the men's team tried to switch to the women's team after taking a year off for hormone therapy.
We all agreed that we were willing to not swim if it came down to it, if this athlete was going to be allowed to swim. It is completely unfair to compete against a biological male who had competed very well on our men's team, now wanting to come to the women's team.
With that motivation, last October, the team held a press conference.
I am calling on the NCAA and lawmakers everywhere to stop the suffering and emotional turmoil that is being placed on girls. My name is Lily Mullins, a captain of the Roanoke College swim team, and I stand with female athletes everywhere. Thank you.
One day after President Trump signed the executive order, the NCAA announced a new policy prohibiting male athletes from competing as if they were women in accordance with the Trump executive order. And an update on our reporting about the government food police cracking down on raw milk and other foods sold outside the production establishment.
A big win for Amish farmer Amos Miller, whose case we profiled recently on Full Measure. A Pennsylvania court ruled that he can continue to sell raw milk outside of the state, just not in the state, while a state case against him continues in court. State officials had raided his home and blocked him from doing that in a dispute over what permits are actually needed. They also marked off his other organic food products and said he couldn't sell those either in the meantime.
Over the last 5 years, either the state or the federal government has at various times raided his farm, searched it, seized food related to it, tried to destroy food related to it that they found, and often tried to shut him down.
Authorities have said Miller's and other raw milk products are safety issues. Raw milk advocates say raw milk is wrongly blamed for some illnesses and point to documentation that pasteurized milk products have been responsible for the most deadly outbreaks over time.
And after a break, what's ahead next week on Full Measure? Coming up next week on Full Measure, it was a consistent promise during the Trump campaign.
Drill, baby, drill.
But now that the new Trump administration is a reality, is there any sign that production of oil and gas is about to increase?
How important is the Gulf to you?
We've been in the Gulf of America for 85 years. We're continuing to invest today. We are increasing production 50% between last year and what we will see next year.
That's a huge number.
We go deep into the Gulf of America to see the new promise of American energy dominance on the next Full Measure. Until then, thanks for watching. I'm Sharyl Attkisson.